Please all rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you all for coming to the Board of Trustees public session in September. It's great to see you all here. The first thing we have is the Employee of the Month. And do we have any pictures or? No?
Some people are camera shy, they don't like to come in.
And we don't even have the individual here.
Just draw a picture.
In any event, the Employee of the Month is Brian Dureska, and he's a maintenance mechanic 2, Highway Department. His date of hire was August 14th, 2017, and I will read you what his supervisor wrote about him. He said, Brian ran the crew that re-bricked the entrance to the Cultural Center. And I don't know if any of you have gone by the Cultural Center, but the re-bricking of the steps, those guys did an absolutely magnificent job. All that brick had started to sulfize, and it was all disintegrating, and now it really looks good. The job was efficient, timely, and of exceptional quality. This type of work is cost-effective for the village and taxpayers. And more than that, it's really great to see a group of guys that take such pride in doing their work. So, Brian, I don't have a plaque or a picture for you, but we will, and thank you very much for all your work. It's really appreciated. And with that done, we go to public comment, and I think we have a couple of people here signed up. First person is Susan Madonia.
Hi. Hello. It's Susan Madonia. I'm here speaking for Madonia Antiques. We're 36 Jobs Lane, and there is a project on Jobs Lane right now. It's the redevelopment of 3842 Jobs Lane, which is a massing of 3 lots where the courtyard is presently. And on the Southampton Village Center vision plan, there's actually a picture of the courtyard, and with Jobs Lane saying to preserve focus. Jobs Lane is a key street, it's a historic area, preserve the historic fiber. So I'm just very surprised that a giant mass of structure, of shopping structure, could be even considered to replace this beautiful historic courtyard, which is our heritage and does have historic significance. So I just wanted to tell you that it is not the type of development which should be considered for Jobs Lane. I alone should not have been called to look at the finished plan at Gil's office. I think all the residents and neighbors should have seen the plans before they were now about passed. I feel the planning board has not acted fairly for the residents and neighbors. I feel that maybe rights have been violated. I think this will be an irreversible change to the integrity of our historic area. I was told by the chairman, Alan McFarland, and by Mayor Irving that I do not need a lawyer and to trust the boards, which I did. The planning board passed a negative declaration the first public session when I said the project was too massive, and I need help understanding the plans and what my rights were. I now know I need a lawyer, and I should have disagreed with the passing of the negative declaration. And with this, not understanding the drastic negative impact this project has to me and the residents, it was wrong to pass this at the first public session, and I feel this should be rescinded. Job's Lane, according to the Village Center Vision Plan on the website, is most importantly well known to the village and the residents and the neighbors, and this Job's Lane is known around the country and even in Europe as an historic area. We must preserve this unique streetscape. This is what the plan suggests. This is what the majority want. This plan destroys what we have and goes against what the village is looking to preserve. It does have historic significance. It was made an open courtyard surrounded by open space, replacing a lawn area with a center tree and shopping behind it. This plan is completely opposite and against the concept of space that was there, and it cannot be compared to Folk and Folk building on the other side of the street, which was a structure that was there and it was restored. This courtyard should be restored. It was an active, successful shopping area that we needed updating, and the stores to be combined with stores like Seagreen and Stubbs & Wooten and many others were doing well there in the past. So to say this concept of shopping does not work is wrong. Please come to shop on Job's Lane because it's a local shopping experience. The plans were mostly passed by the time I was called to look at them. The timing issue here is that the plan was wrongly not made public and passed in the winter without thinking the residents and the neighbors, not considering the vision and codes for them. This is a big loss for the community. I'm concerned about the massive brick wall which will loom over my building with visual impact. I ask that the roof lines be dropped so I may retain the light to my windows. I have a very large utility center that will be coming on my line, removing and trees, rerouting my heating, reinforcing the structure of my building. The massive structure is just not right in this historic area. Too many hardships, too massive of an impact. Please listen to your master plan. Please restore and keep the courtyard. I ask the trustees, I ask you to stop and reconsider this project. It is not a fair solution for the village. The planning board is not acting for the residents to see. Please, trustees, can you please support the residents? Can you please retain our historic nature? I'm asking that you have some sort of a creative solution. People have come to me all summer long. Sue, what can we do? We'll pay for the septic system. Maybe we can pay to keep the fountain there and take care of the flowers. Can we work something out with this developer? Can you at least try to do something? Since all summer long, I was there in the store and people came to me, and we have created concerned citizens for Job's Lane. There are so many people in this village. I don't think you understand how many people, since a little bit of time that this movement finally got going in August, I have almost 500 signed petitions that people went all over the village, with another 100 coming in. Online, I have almost 1,200 signatures against this proposed project. It is growing hugely, and I'd like to submit these to you. And we have almost a movement of over 2,000 concerned residents and letters, and I know that everybody has written to you and to the planning board. We are most confused by the planning board. We are here because at the last meeting, Alan McFarland hasn't answered or responded to anything we've said. How many lawyers we've had to hire, how many codes we have to bring up, how many, we don't know what to do. So I'm asking you, for the residents, there is a movement here, a citizens movement, a visual impact that has to be considered, and this negative impact, there is a negative impact. And please, please, can you work with the planning board? Can you work with this developer so we can have our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Evelyn Conrad?
Good evening. Of course, I agree with everything that Susan has said, but let me add something to it, and that is the innumerable state laws that the planning board has violated in coming up with this so-called negative declaration. They have mislabeled the project in making it public. They gave inadequate notice of the public meeting. I, for one, didn't know about it, and I do keep my eye on those things. I knew about it when Susan mentioned the project. And they have certainly not considered all the important factors, such as the loss of open space, which does not depend on who owns it. Roy Stevenson said, who owns it? Well, that's not the issue. The issue is who uses it, and the public uses it for shopping, for visiting, for whatever. Then there is the historic question. I've outlined those in my letter to the board. I had passed along that letter to the board. In spite of that, which states irrefutable New York State laws, this is just secret, never mind all the others they violated. This was purely secret. And in spite of that, at the work session, which preceded by a week the session we were all at the planning board, they sat here, and between Roy Stevenson McFarland and Elbert W. Robinson, their lawyer, and then the two ladies decided as follows, that they were going to close the discussion at the end of the next public hearing. That's a conspiracy to defraud the village. That's a conspiracy to violate secret law. I talked to one of my consultants from New York, who has also worked for the village very successfully, by the way, Frank Fisher, when I told him about that decision at the work session, where I sat over there and certainly heard every word. He said, my God, that's conspiracy to violate New York State law. So I do think it's time for you to step in. It definitely is time for you to step in. Also, I read your copy of the New York State municipal law, which you have now put into village law, the 4 hours of training necessary. If you can train Mr. McFarland to know anything about New York State law in 4 hours, wonderful. But what interests me is your authority to remove people who do not have that training. Well, I think you might start with the 4 members of the planning board. I have never seen such egregious ignorance in my entire life. They don't even know what secret is, let alone read anything about it. They don't know the general municipal law. They don't know suburban law, New York State law for the suburbs, for subdivisions, I'm sorry. I'm a little excited too, because I've been working on this for 4 weeks to no result whatsoever. So we do look to you. I think it's your responsibility, because you would be taking part in this absurd conspiracy. 5 people sat at that table and decided to close the discussion at the end of the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving ahead to board presentations.
Anybody else want to speak that hasn't signed up?
Well, yeah, is there anybody else that wants to?
My name is Horace Bliss. I'm a village resident. I bow to the attorneys in the room, but I suspect that they have addressed the whole issue of an easement by prescription. I believe that the path between the 2 buildings has been in use by the public in excess of 10 years. And in New York State, there is a statute that says that if a property has been used by the public for a period of 10 years and passes certain tests, which I cannot quote right now, then you could file a claim in New York State court for an easement by prescription. It would prevent someone from taking and blocking that path with a building or with another structure. And I would ask your attorneys, both for the village and others that are involved here, to explore that statute and its applicability in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adverse possession.
Any other comments? No further comments, and then I move to board presentations. We have fire.
I don't see Alfie here, so we'll go right to Windward Way.
Okay. So without Alfie here, we'll go to Windward Way. Gary?
Good evening, Gary Gillespie, Superintendent of Public Works. In your books, you have some pictures of the current Windward Way Park.
Yeah, I just asked Julie.
We took a couple pictures of existing conditions, and you have some pictures. Sir? Thank you. I'll go through them, but we gave you some pictures of new equipment, plans, et cetera, for this park. Essentially, we're here tonight to ask you to renovate Windward Way Park. It was last renovated, I believe, about 11 years ago, with Trustee Bonnie Cannon and I worked on that. At the time, we replaced about 90% of the structures in that park. We did leave one large structure that you see in the picture. At the time, it was, about midway through its life. It was in good repair. So it stayed, and we resurfaced the park with a safety surface, which was actually colored purple at the time. Now the piece you see, you may not be able to see it too clearly, but there's pieces of the roof are now missing. The play structure has rusted. We've actually repaired that in several spots where we found sharp metal that we've had to grind down and repaint over. And it's just basically tired. Things just don't work as well on it as it used to, and we feel it's time to replace that structure now. So what we want to do up there is we want to renovate by taking that one large structure out. We would leave all the pieces in the park that were put in there about 11 years ago. We would replace that one large structure with two smaller structures, and we would also add 3 spinning devices around the rest of the park that are called spikas, and basically a child would step onto them and just twirl around and have some fun. So in the picture again, you see the one large piece, which is now a little dangerous for everybody. We are looking at a play surface that looks like asphalt that's black. That asphalt is now starting to degrade, where it's just turning into particles as kids' sneakers and stuff rub on it. So it's like a black dirt that's getting there. It is pretty much inert, so it won't hurt you so much, but sooner or later people are going to get it in their eyes and swallow it and other things. So we'd like to come in there and recap that surface and make it all brand new and shiny. And we'd like to add some new structures to the park. All right, I'll take your questions. I just want to let you know we do have Jeff LaRue here from the Compan Company, who's helped us with this project so far.
I'd like to add a little something to this. I think when you approached me on this, it was mainly because of the large structure that was there and how it's become somewhat dangerous because it's older and parts are falling off of it and it's rusting. And we also talked about the surface. The surface is disintegrating in areas, and that's of great concern because, as Gary said, it can be on their sneakers, children can be inhaling it, which of course we don't want to have happen. The majority of it passed what's called the bounce test. These are rubber surfaces that are spongy so that if a child falls off of an apparatus, they call it a bounce test, but it's soft, so that they would have less of a chance of hurting themselves. I went over there to take a look at it. The Compan equipment, and Jeff LaRue can talk to you more about it, but the Compan equipment is so superior in the sense that most of the equipment was designed so that children would use their core muscle groups. That's why we picked it for Lake Agawam. So, and the spinners are important because, as Jeff explained, that when they came up with the spinners, when we were kids, we used to wind ourselves up on the swings and let it go, and we'd spin. But and part of it, what did we know about that? But part of spinning helps with children's brain development. So when we put the spinners down in Lake Agawam Park, the children absolutely took to them like you would not believe. I mean, it's a piece of apparatus that they never get off of. I mean, you can go down there and kids are spinning constantly down there, which is a wonderful thing. So while we were looking at changing out the equipment that is faulty up at Windward Way, I said, I think we need to give some spinners up here as well. So we picked 3 spinners, starting at a there is the different levels. So we have one spinner that is 5 to 12, and then they go down, so they're different sizes. And, you know, basically, we have to change out this equipment. So maybe, Jeff, you'd like to come up and talk a little bit?
Certainly.
Hello, Jeff LaRue from Compan Playgrounds. Good to be back. Just a couple quick updates on Compan. We've been a partner with the village now for several years. We've just opened up a new manufacturing plant in Austin, Texas. So, you know, our part of our owners are Danish, and but we also have architects in the U.S. here that are also designing now. But all the parts and manufacturing are in Austin, Texas now, so, which is great. So timing on parts and repairs are going to be much quicker and make every salesperson's life a lot better. I can tell you that, making our customers happy. So I just wanted to throw that in there. The two new structures are creating something a little different. The one there that's now is a post and platform structure. So there's a specific way to get on that structure. There's a staircase that goes to a platform, and then you can go to different types of activities. So one of the new structures does have that, and it also has a transfer platform, which makes it ADA compliant. It's got a nice huge slide and banister bars and all the curly climbers like the existing structure. The other new structure is called Galaxy, and it's something similar that's at Agawam. And that one does not have a staircase, it does not have barriers or rails. It is very open and transparent, and there's not a predetermined way to get on that structure. You can actually advance and get on anywhere around that structure, which is great. And then someone even in a wheelchair could actually roll up and participate inside that structure and play with children, especially for those that can't use a staircase, for instance. So I think that's, having more inclusive play has really been important to Compan and really important to most communities around the U.S. right now. And then lastly, on the surfacing, it's a perfect time to recap that because it is disintegrating, and if we let it go much longer, you'll have to tear up the entire surface and put all new buffings down, and then the EDPM layer, the wearing course layer. So you're going to get at least another 5-year warranty out of it, and it'll probably last well beyond that. But it is good timing to do that right now. Any other questions?
The resurface of 5 years, what's the cost of that versus just doing it all over? You had said that if you don't do something now, it has to be...
Yeah, you're probably closer to nearly $100,000 more if you had to take it all out and then redo it. It's expensive.
And then if you resurface it, what's the rough, it's about whatever, something less than 100,000, something less 100,000. The resurface cost is 100,000 less, that's what I'm trying to say. But it only lasts 5 years.
It probably will last longer than
Yeah,
that.
that's just the warranty on the
years.
EDPM layer. That's correct.
I think the other surface was 10 years.
Yeah,
A little bit.
I would say
Maybe
you'll get a
even more
good-
than that, a little bit more than 10. Yeah.
Nancy, this is a question for you. I know we traded out everything in Agawam as well because it reaches a point where it's dangerous, right? And this sounds like it's the same time frame, but do we have an understanding of how many children are in that neighborhood? Because I know we added adult items such as a checkboard, chessboard to Agawam. Should we consider that?
We have a member of the community, Derek's here, who works for us upstairs. But the only real piece that we're changing out is the big structure. We're keeping the swings, we're keeping all the bouncy little animal things that the kids can jump on, and we're just adding the spinners. The big thing here, besides the two big pieces of equipment, or is really the surface, and we really have to do the surface.
You got to do the surface.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're doing the surface, we might as well take out the rusted, falling apart apparatus and replace that with something. The basketball courts are in good shape. We don't have to do anything with those. So,
I mean, I think it definitely falls in line for the reason and it is great equipment. The reason we installed it at Agawam was to replace severely deteriorating equipment then, so this falls in the same guidelines. An improvement with, again, much more superior. And I would imagine as we go along, start the plan of phasing in similar apparatus as the other ones.
Sure, that would be the hope. I know North Haven is already jumping on the bandwagon. They've added a few things over there.
Compan is a company that is worldwide. If you look in cities in Japan, they have Compan equipment for their children. They have books showing all the different countries all over the world are using Compan. And how I found out about it was not through Compan. I have a neighbor who's a physical therapist in Manhattan, and he and his wife raised their children. They were living in Manhattan, and he came to me and said, if you ever think about changing out your equipment in Agawam Park, I'd really like to be a part of that. And he went on to say that living in Manhattan, I go out of my way to bring my children to these certain playgrounds in Manhattan that have Compan equipment. And he was the one who explained to me that that it allows children to use their core muscles, which most play equipment, now a lot of people are copying you, I think.
Yeah.
But for a long time, no one really even thought about that. And so I said, I'm very interested. So Tommy and Gary and I went up to Port Washington, because there was a private school up there that had some of the pieces of equipment. And when Tommy took a look at it, he was the head of our parks at the time, he took a look at it and he said, I've never seen anything as wonderful as this. He said, this is really terrific. So then we were committed to changing out our equipment with Compan. And honestly, we have had more compliments about that equipment down in Lake Agawam. And we'd like to expand that. But, that's one of the reasons why I want to change out the equipment. We have to change the equipment out at Windward Way, and we have to do over the flooring or so, that's what we want to do, and we think it's a good plan.
Funding,
We have enough
parking.
money in parks.
Yeah.
We have a park fund that will cover it for that.
Derek, did you want to say something?
I didn't,
Derek Highsmith also joined us on the committee when we were looking at it.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to say quick, Kim, you did mention a chess table. So in the area of this world of soft surfaces, we wouldn't want to put that hard structure in there, that concrete structure. Perhaps over in the grassy area next to it, we could look around and see if we wanted to do something like that as we add benches and other things up there.
I guess I didn't ask my question properly. If we're spending money to resurface it for 5 years, 5 years goes quickly. I mean, it may go a little longer. Maybe we do it right and we pay the extra $100,000 for it to last much longer. And that's my question. I don't know the numbers to be able to analyze it.
Well, I think he's telling you there's a 5-year warranty on it. He's not saying it's only going to last 5 years. The surface under it is, or in other words, what he's saying, if we were going to do it the other way, we'd have to rip out everything, whereas we have a really good base there now, so we're adding to the base. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
Yeah. And he's not saying it's only going to last for 5 years, he's just saying there's a 5-year warranty on it.
How long did the last one last? What's there?
That was up there.
Yeah, that's
It's about 10 years, and then the color coat just completely wore away.
It
Right.
was purple originally, and it
Right.
changed to black. But I also have to say that I think that industry has come a long way within the last 10 years, because I do know that when we added that surface to the Agawam Children's Playground, it was extremely hot to begin with. I was a nervous wreck because I thought, we can't have these children on this surface. They'll be burning themselves. That's how hot it was at 12 noon. But over a period of time, that calmed down, and it was much better. But we've resurfaced that, and that's been, how many years has that been since we had to?
I think that was about 12 years
Yeah.
that happened as well.
Right.
The Windward Way surface, that was a different company,
Yeah.
different material. Not to say that, the new material we put down will have the same life or not, but Agawam, we didn't lose the color or that, but it started, getting a little bit abused from high heels and other things where it just started getting cracks in it. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot. Now, can you also buy an extra sealer on that to prolong the life of that surface?
Yes, you can, which is something you might do a year before the warranty.
Could you come up to the mic?
Charlie's yelling. Pointing frantically.
Yeah, you can actually top coat with a new binder, and sometimes that is done about the 4th year in, and then you'll see even better results up through 10 years. So you might do that for maybe $1, $1.50, $2 a square foot, something like that, and really give it more longevity, and the manufacturer will increase the warranty on that. So yeah, that's something we could look at. And if we thought that base wasn't any good right now, we wouldn't be doing this. Trust me. So, thank you.
Now, we do belong to the U.S. community, so we can buy this off a requirements contract, and the unbelievably low price here under contract is going to be $272,000, $280.64. I don't know if you have the same number.
Give or take a couple of bucks.
Give or take a couple of bucks. Anyway, Steve has told me we have the money in the park trust fund should we want to move forward with it tonight. And we don't have to go out to bid on it because we buy it off a contract.
Okay.
Also, we are looking into improvements in other parks, but this kept coming back to our attention that our workers saw and people in the community saw, and we can't let this park really slip into disrepair.
No, it becomes a
further.
priority because we're
Yeah.
replacing something that's deficient, and that's how
Yeah,
that
that's-
came
that- yeah.
about. So, clearly, I agree.
When would you start to resurface? Now, would you, before the winter?
Yeah, we want to get it in before the winter if we can.
Okay.
So what will happen is the existing structure will have to be demoed, be pulled out. The park section will have to be closed. The surface underneath that section will have to be scraped out so we can put in new footings for the new equipment. And then we have to get the whole thing all put back together before we get any kind of frost or, too much weather under 50 degrees.
So the exercise units probably won't go in until spring?
The exercise units?
Well, all the playground stuff.
No, I think we would have all this done this fall. What we would be doing, we'd probably fence off the basketball area from the playground area so kids could still use that part of the park, but this part would have to be shut down for or at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Got that.
Now, you're resurfacing the entire playground or just where this apparatus is?
The entire
right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll also go through there and look at all the benches, garbage cans, things like that. Anything that's looking a little bit worn, we'll replace those as well. Not under this price, but in addition to.
Good. What, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the refurbishing of Windward Way Playground, to have resurfacing and the purchase of compound equipment as outlined in our book this evening.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, thank you.
Here you go.
Good job.
Here you go, Gary.
Thank you.
And I think
You showed up, so
Alfie showed up, yeah.
see presentations.
I thought I saw him sneak in.
Hiding in the back. Hello, everyone. You guys keep getting stuck with me. I don't know what happened.
It's okay, it's always good to see you.
My name's Alfred Callion, Second Assistant Chief, Southampton Fire Department. Up here tonight for a few things. First off, we're at the point in the year I'm presenting tonight a new chief's vehicle to replace our 2011. It is the next vehicle in the rotation. Currently, the 2011 has 174,000 miles on it. Predicting probably next 3 months or so, will probably hit the 180,000 mark. And that's the vehicle that'll be going out on the rotation. We do have the specs similar, actually pretty much exact to the same two Tahoes that we got a few years ago. We didn't change anything in the specs. Still going through the NJPA quote through National Auto Fleet, sound off signal for the lighting package through state contract. And the only change to the specs was the color of the vehicle from white to red. Other than that, there were no changes in the request from the chief for the vehicle. The complete package for the vehicle will come to $65,703.80. That's for the vehicle, the conversion, the graphics, and the command cabinet and equipment in the back. So actually a little bit cheaper for one vehicle this time around. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have about that purchase, the vehicle use, anything you might want to know about that.
Well, I think, Alfie, we talked about replacing the chief's vehicle. And one of the things that you might explain to the public, that at 180,000 miles, it has probably 3 times the amount of engine time, because a lot of times you leave those vehicles running with the lights on.
Yeah.
Than a normal vehicle with the same.
Yeah, and a lot of times the first things to go on these vehicles are the alternators, a lot of the electrical equipment. This specific vehicle's had the transmission replaced a couple years back. But this is the last of the in-service Tahoes, actually. That was an off-the-lot Tahoe purchase. All these new vehicles that we've been getting are the special service vehicles with the heavy-duty alternators, heavy-duty suspension, transmissions, designed for this kind of use. So it lasted us quite a bit of time. Chiefs going through the ranks do take good care of the vehicles. So we did get, a full tenure out of this vehicle. So that's when I'd be going out. The vehicle would be coming in assigned 230 to go down the chairs through all the way through captain. So this vehicle coming in would be looking to get another 8 years out of this one. The standard rotation we kind of got off on a few years back. This will place us back on the 2-year rotation with the Tahoes.
It's always kind of embarrassing when the chief's vehicle doesn't start,
It was, and actually the one being replaced is the one I'm in, and we know each other well. I know her quirks, but it was a good truck.
The only thing, I don't think we have a price quote in here.
No, there's not.
No, I have everything right here for you, and the funds. This is the complete package. The funds for this vehicle are in the reserve account already. It is something that was planned for and budgeted for this year, so it's not a.
It's just one with the
The only difference between years past is instead of placing the order later on in the year, we're trying to place the order early now so we can have it on the road before January.
Right. Generally, what you're doing, what the rotation is about is we have the chief in 30 whose term expires the end of this year. So we have the next one moving up, presumably, and we bring in a new chief vehicle. It's ordered now, so it arrives when the new chief assumes his role, and then the other ones just keep moving down the line. We did slip out of rotation, as the chief referenced a few years ago, so this gets us back on a very stringent rotation, something I know that you've always been keen on, which is a good thing. And this is the one, every time a new 30 moves up, so this is something that happens in this particular vehicle every 2 years.
Yes.
The only difference is the new chief would like it red, which is kind of cool, going back to the old...
Well, a couple years back, they switched over to the white, and shortly after we did that, everybody went with the white.
Yeah, everybody does. Red seems to be back in vogue.
Yeah,
I see it in a lot of neighboring departments.
In Chevy, it comes stock with the truck now, the color selection. And then the graphics, it'll be the same graphic scheme, just with the red and reflective instead of the white and reflective.
What happens to the older vehicle?
Usually, it depends on the condition of the vehicle. The vehicle that goes out is our department manager's truck, and historically, last years, I believe the central garage is taking them on as shop trucks. They use the vehicles to, when they need to go pick up a vehicle at a garage, they'll drive that to the garage, drive the truck back, and then that's how the central garage mechanics get around. A couple years ago, I know one just went up for auction just because of the condition of it. So they're still drivable. It's just because of all the electronics and equipment that the department has on it. It's tough to keep them on the road.
Yeah, all the departments, in addition to the fire, as a vehicle gets too old and too worn, it will again either go into some use that would be less demanding, and again, if that's, or we put it out on the street and actually sell the vehicle.
So the total price again was
$65,703.80.
And does that include all the additional equipment you have here from the box
It's all in.
back and the equipment holders and the cabinets?
That's everything. Yeah.
That's everything?
The two quotes there for the conversion, the cabinet and the graphics, lights, the installation of all the hand equipment in the back, and then the price of the vehicle.
No.
I would give the fire department total support because you guys do very carefully the rotation of your vehicles. And obviously, they put in, as I said, long hours. It's not just the miles on them, it's the number of hours on those engines. And, it's great that they're getting this red one because every time they pass me on my way to work, I can spot them a little easier.
Brought the fire truck by for a birthday party, and when the children point out that's not a fire truck, it's white. So. Back to the tradition a little bit.
Although the last white ones I'd spot pretty quickly when they went by me. I never could figure out why they got to go so fast and I couldn't.
Due diligence.
So you're okay with sending Chief onward to?
Yes, because I know they've been working on this for quite a while.
Okay, and then I'd like to make a motion to send Chief Callahan out to purchase the Tahoe. Where is it? There we go. what year is it?
19.
2019 Chevy Tahoe, replacing, what year?
2011.
2011 Tahoe, currently in service, to be used for the incoming 30 coming in, the Southampton Fire Department.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The second thing I have for you is a continuation. There was a meeting I think a month or two back. I had to step out. Ed Corrigan briefly mentioned the fire hydrants in the district. We would just want to start a conversation with you guys. I apologize, some of the pictures are terrible. Copies.
Isn't the fire district in charge of them
They are for the ones in
now?
the district.
In our district? Just in there.
Are these groups or?
Yeah, they're groups.
No, don't. Yeah, keep going. Same thing.
We're responsible for maintaining the ones in the village.
Thank you.
So just briefly, so one of the issues that we're starting to have, the hydrants in the district, when they're installed by the Water Authority, are put in a bright yellow with reflective paint scheme. The ones in the village have historically been matched the village green with the silver bonnet, as you can see in two of these pictures. The problems that the department has sometimes, especially when it's foul weather with snow, or in some areas where it's just overgrown, the hydrants are starting to blend into the background, to the hedgerows, the trees, shrubs. and it's just tough for them to see. I mean, the pictures aren't that great, but you can tell just from first glance that they do kind of blend in.
No, they don't. I thought that was ridiculous. Somebody said it was offensive to have red hydrants.
And then the other two problems we have is if there is a good deal of snow on the ground before the hydrants are cleared, unless we go to the map and can kind of track down where they're supposed to be, there's no marking through the snow or out in the street for the hydrant that could be buried either in the bushes or in the snow. So the last 3 pages are just examples of markings that are out there. Obviously repainting the hydrants. When they go in, I said they're yellow and white. They're reflective. I know yellow kind of stands out. Red is a little more traditional. They're open to any color. That's kind of recommended, but something visible just driving down the street on first glance. There's a pendant marker. I was going more for that pendant, not the hydrant with the blue, but the pendant marker on the hydrant, that's something that sticks up about 5 feet on the back of the hydrant, gets mounted. So if there is snow, that usually ends up sticking up through the snow itself, so you can see those. And lastly, there are street markers. There are 2 different kinds. We're open to either one if they'll be willing to. Would be this one is a blue reflector, gets put in the center of the street to mark the hydrant location directly to either side of it. The other one is a simple reflector right off the curb, right in front of the hydrant in the street. The point of this being is you're driving down the street at nighttime, especially your headlights will reflect off that. You'll know where the hydrant is down the street. So really, I just want to start a discussion where the department would like any one, all 3, anything that you'd be willing. The pendant marker and the reflector, the street marker, would be done by Suffolk County Water Authority at no charge. I have to find out about the painting. I'm not sure if repainting a painted hydrant they would do or not, but I could look into that if you'd like me to. So really, we just want to know what you'd let us do. And
These 2 I've seen used often. I've seen the street one.
yes.
Which is, I think, pretty easy for everybody to see. I don't know what the maintenance is on that, whether it lasts any length of time, or plows, do they scrape those up?
I'm not sure. I know they match kind of the ones that you see when you go into crosswalks or on the highways, so I want to say they're pretty durable. The blue is pretty specific to fire hydrants,
Yep.
as opposed to the yellow, white, orange that you'd see in the street right now.
And then the stick marker on the hydrant itself, I was always surprised we don't, all our hydrants, some of them haven't, but most of them don't.
Well, that was a project, so a few years back, we have our junior squad, and they wanted T-shirts and hats. So the department bought the pendants, and the juniors went around the district and put those on the hydrants in exchange for hats and shirts that year, so.
Do we have maps showing where all the hydrants are in the village?
We do. All the apparatus carry them. The chief's vehicles have them in our dispatch system. Everything was actually updated, I want to say about a year ago now, from the Water Authority.
How many do you think we have hydrants?
Chief Brenner said we had 316.
In the village.
Right.
That sounds-
Fire district.
Fire district, it's hard to gauge because it's growing. I know when I first joined the department, most of Watermill did not have hydrant mains. Over the last few years, they've run water mains down a lot of the streets, so most of the east end of the district now is hydrants and water mains. There's a few areas up in Shinnecock Hills, the areas in between County Road 39 and Montauk Highway have some areas without hydrants.
Where would you be proposing to have these improvements and markers placed? Just within the village or the entire district?
Whatever we do, we want to do for the entire Salem Fire District. As I said, the street marking and the pendants, we could get done through the Water Authority. And then painting I'd have to look into, but I wanted to bring it up here first. Whatever we do, we're going to we want it to be kind of standard throughout. So now the district commissioners, they understand where I'm coming from with all this, so they said the same thing. Whatever we set will be the standard for what we use for the district.
So what do you need from us? Color? Is that what you're...
Well, if, as I said, these were the three markings we were looking at. If you're okay with the pendant and the street marker, I can reach out to Water Authority and get that moving. If you're okay with the painting of the hydrants,
Yeah.
I can look into,
Well, the biggest thing is that if you guys are okay with that street marker, because you're the ones that got to spot it.
well, the street markers are great, especially even in clear weather. At nighttime, you'll be able to see it from a distance, and that pendant especially is important for the snow as we get into the winter season.
No, the street mark is important because, at times it's hard when they're trying to communicate where a hydrant is, or one can be faulty, so they have to go to the
If it's
next one. So,
raining.
yeah, so but I think the chief is trying to gauge from the board member because, again, as part of what we do, whether it's public safety, whatever, but there are aesthetics involved here, which is case in point. That's why the hydrants were green, because somewhere, I remember the story, along the line, someone thought it was flagrant to have a red hydrant, and they were painted green. So clearly, this board is in charge of aesthetics, even in situations like this. So when we discuss it with the chiefs, that's why it's in front of us here. Do we have any issues with changing the color, putting the flag thing on? The road marking, that's an easy one, because that's not invasive. But the other two are some changes.
So let me ask you on the road marking, are those put out like in the late fall so that when we go through the snowy season, or are they on there all the time?
So the reflector would be a
I know.
permanent marker in the street.
No, I'm talking
No,
about
the thing
those
on the-
tall things.
Those
What do
go
you
out
call that?
year-round.
That's
Oh,
the
they're out
pendant?
year-round.
Yeah. That pendant gets mounted on the backside of the hydrant, and they're durable.
Is that a solid pole or is it a flexible?
It's a flexible pole.
It is a flexible.
It has to be so you can get the hydrant wrench around.
Yeah, I've seen them with springs on the
Yeah.
base.
Yeah.
Does a snowplow ever clip one of these?
Honestly, I can't say. All I know is just from that style of reflector in general, I see them throughout the highways, throughout the town and village roads.
The
They
same
are
thing's
out
already used on roads now.
Right now they're used, you see orange ones to mark sharp bends, crosswalks in some areas. You see white ones along the side of the road for marking the shoulder line. So those are out there and they seem to last.
Sometimes you see actual little pictures of little hydrants in the center of the road too, sometimes denoting where they are, reflective, like paint.
Yeah, so the little picture is something, again, the Water Authority offered, but that's something you kind of have to be right on top of to see. The idea behind this is something that coming down the street from a distance, you'll see that blue mark in the street.
So a couple things that what the chiefs are looking for is, one, again, where aesthetics, what color, and this pendant, where we want to go with that, if we want to go that. And two, you do need to find out what the cost would be for the painting, because we do split this along the district, and we'd have to be in line with the district commissioners to find out what that cost would be, and then therefore who would be,
Yeah.
how it gets paid for.
I said, yeah, the
which is
painting I have to look
semantics,
into. All the ones in the district, they just kept the yellow. That's what the hydrants are when they're installed. We'd be fine if we don't like the yellow and we want to do the red. If we want to do a different color, we'd be fine with that. We'd know
They're
that.
bringing swatches.
I like the red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue, what's wrong with that?
You gotta have
That
more
might be
paint.
extra.
Yeah, I kind of threw that.
I like that.
I like that. That would actually end up being what the hydrant would look like with the pendant, and then the marker would be out in the street. So,
I mean, if we're going to do the red, white, if we're going to do red, why not do the red, white, and blue? Because I like that.
Wasn't the problem you couldn't see the hydrant? We had 4 nor'easters this year, and you had to take your maps and dig them
Yeah.
out. So if it's got a white top, how do you see it?
You just kept
well,
the
the
state.
top is a little deceiving. The picture that top.
Only if it has the state.
That top is always going to be more of a, I want to say, silverish reflective color. That's what it is right now, the green with the silver reflector.
So you can see it in the snow, is
Yeah.
what you're saying. Okay.
So that the bonnet on top is going to be a reflective paint. Really what we're looking for is the actual hydrant itself, because right now, we go down the street, and as we drive by it, we look in the bushes and see, oh, there was the hydrant. It's because you can see that silver top. But the hydrants don't really stand out. So that was the idea behind changing the paint color of the hydrant. But again, that was an aesthetic issue with the hydrant, so with the pendant and the street marker, that would give us the visibility. The painting of the hydrant would just be something for visual, driving down the street visual, seeing the hydrant
And the
itself.
district sticking with yellow?
Yeah, the hydrants in the district, everything that is public, off the public mains, they stayed just with the yellow. That's what they are when they install them. So unpainted yellow with the silver reflective. Some of the private hydrants and on private properties are painted red. Whatever.
So the majority of the green ones are within the village.
Yeah, anything that's green is within the village. So right now we know green and yellow.
So look at it in like yellow somewhere.
And that's why I showed the picture of the red, because if it was an issue with the yellow, red is visible, so.
Sounds ridiculous, but that discussion happened somewhere.
It is, but I also don't want to, I don't want to do anything that.
No, you do it the right.
Shortly after
Correct,
that.
yes. So do we have any thoughts on it, or
Well, I think we
back,
need
or
to
what,
you need to get us a price on what it's going to cost.
Well, that, yeah, but I mean, the color of it. Does anybody have issue with converting these to yellow?
No, I'm going to leave that to Nancy.
I like yellow. I mean, I think yellow's really great, but I'm looking at the red, white, and blue looks pretty great, too.
Well, we could always put a few of those within the business district, red, white, and blue. We could customize a few.
Which can be, one of the officers who printed this picture, he even said the same thing, see if they like this. And I was like, baby steps. But you guys do like it. But again, the important thing is red, white, and blue, red and white. It's something that you drive down the street, you see it, and you know there's a hydrant.
I think you got to make everything universal. And if yellow is what has been used in the town, I think we're going to use yellow here.
Oh, you want to use yellow? I don't mind. I like yellow. In fact, I forget where I was, probably in the town, and I saw yellow one. I thought it was great looking.
And I said, and that would also save you any headache with having to paint them as they install them or replace them throughout the village. That's what they are when they put them in now.
But you're not going to replace all the hydrants. We'll just paint them.
Yes.
Right.
And
They do get replaced from time to time when they're,
Yeah.
not operable, and that's at the Water Authority.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I have to find out, I said, there might not be a cost, because I know this water authority does go throughout the water district, and as they need to repaint them, they repaint the hydrants. So it could also be something we phase in, if they're willing to paint them as
So we
they
have
get to
to
them.
repaint 316 hydrants.
At least they're not leopard.
I can see if the juniors want hats this year.
I don't know, I think I
But,
know a good Eagle project.
But as I said, the markings, the street marking, the pennant's easy to do. If you'd like me to, I can reach out to water authority and find out about the painting and.
I think the street markings are essential.
Yeah.
I think that's a standard practice, and again, so what we'll do, tell them okay on a couple things and get some
Well,
pricing
yeah,
on the paint?
definitely. You got to do the street markings and stuff, because to miss a hydrant is kind of embarrassing,
And did you say that Suffolk County Water comes in and puts those tall little things on the back?
Yeah.
We're going to get them from them, and then it's going to be up to
Oh, okay.
the guys to go around and do them. I said most of the district was done by the juniors, so when this first got brought up at our council, they offered again. So gets them out doing things, and they offer, so. We'll take care of the pennants, and then the water authority will be responsible for the street marking.
Yep.
Interesting, thank you.
So the pendants and the street markings, we'll send them on and just come back with some numbers for the painting.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Is that it? Anything else?
Enjoyed your muster.
And I appreciate very much them coming to the rescue of my car fire.
That was you?
And a very big response, but they did great work. Thank you.
You had a cough?
Is that it for tonight? This is two?
That's all I had. I said there was, I don't
I
know
have a new car.
what else was discussed tonight after I left. If you had anything.
No, that was it. The hydrants, and just you come back on it, so. All right, so you got a truck, road markings, and hydrant markings. Paint, you got to come back for. All right. I bet.
No. All right, thank you very much.
You got it.
Thank you,
Have a
Chief.
good night.
You good, Al?
Moving into public hearings, we have a CSC acquisition Cablevision franchise agreement renewal. So I'll make a motion to open that public hearing.
Second?
Second.
Favor? Aye.
Aye.
Francis, present first, or
Good evening. My name is Frank Oliva. I am the Director of Government Affairs for Altice. A couple years ago, Altice purchased Cablevision. This agreement is based off the previous agreements that the Village Board approved in April of 2010, which was then subsequently approved by the Public Service Commission in February 2011. This franchise is for a 10-year term, and it will be effective upon the certification of the Public Service Commission. This would cover the entire village as the service area. It's completely built out, so we wouldn't have to do any additional construction. This agreement provides free cable service to 14 specified municipal locations, all schools, the library, as well as the police department. Those are actually listed in the Exhibit A of the franchise agreement. In addition to the free service, the agreement provides for a grant for the public education and government access channels, as well as other technological purposes of $15,000, which would be payable upon 60 days after the approval of the PSC. Lastly, this agreement increases the franchise fees to the village to 5% of the gross revenue on cable services. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the 5%, I'm sorry, I didn't ask this question.
Yes.
You had indicated, good evening, that this increases the contract to 5% of gross cable revenue services?
That's correct.
Okay.
As defined in the agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. As you know, I've been here every 5 or 10 years for the last several renewals that you have, and I agree.
Joe, just
I apologize. Joseph Prokop, and my address is my office is at 267 Carlton Avenue in Central Islip. The board has had me engage me to review the last several renewals that you've had with this particular franchise. As you know, in the past they were with Cablevision. This renewal was a new step for the village because it was with a new company, Altice. The review of the renewal involved a significant amount of work for myself and Mr. Funch and other village staff, because there were significant changes in the wording of the agreement and some of the terms. We reviewed all of those, the wording and the terms we got. We were able to achieve several changes from Altice, which I would say were to the advantage of the village and in the village's favor. We're very satisfactory with that happening. Very satisfied with that happening, and it would be my recommendation that the board approves the agreement as it is in its present form. Are there any questions that you have for me?
Yeah, so you can educate the taxpayer. You've been doing this for years, and the abridged version, what's the same, what's different with this contract? What's more money? What are the changes here? What are we getting?
Okay, so the first thing, as you heard from Mr. Oliva, the revenue to the village went up by 25%, went up from 4% of the revenues to 5% of the revenues. One of the other things about the agreement is because of the change in the services, the new technology and the different things that that users can acquire for a fee, from Altice. we're actually getting percentage of other types of services that we did not get in the past. So as the Altice menu of video programming and movie selections and things like that you can purchase, the subscriber can purchase, changed, we also had to amend that definition to the advantage of the village to make sure that we get 5% inclusive of as many revenue sources as we can. So that was a change. There was another change, which is that Altice now will be providing the public notice prior to performing work. Construction or tree work, things like that in the village. So there's a provision that Altice will have to provide. I think it's either 1 week or 10 days, but there's a requirement for advance notice of that, which was a.
Was that in before?
Pardon me?
Was that there before?
It was similar, but not as stringent as it is now.
Didn't think so.
Another part of the agreement that we were able to get Altice to have Altice change was a provision regarding abandonment. Most of these franchise holders have what's called an abandonment provision. So if there's any part of the village which, for one reason or another, the franchise holder would like to abandon service, due to a loss of access or, temporary catastrophe, things like that. We were able to change that language to the advantage of the village, we feel, where that can only be done now with the consent. There cannot be a partial abandonment, and if there's any abandonment, that would be with the consent of the village only. So that was a good feature of the agreement, we believe. And I think that was largely it. There were many other language changes just to tighten up the agreement, but those were I'm sorry, there was one significant thing that's been hanging around for a long time, which is a technical issue that every time we've renewed this, it's something that has come up as a discussion. This year, again, with a lot of work from the village, Mr. Funch and the village staff, we were able to get what's called the sizing of the image resolved, or the way that the image is sized resolved. And there was a lot of work done by Altice and working with the village, and I think to the satisfaction of the village in the end. Is that
The aspect ratio, yeah.
the aspect ratio? Right. So the last meeting that we had, I insisted before the meeting broke that everybody was happy on that point, was satisfied in that point. Apparently everybody is. So that was a major accomplishment, I feel.
A lot of generous things there, especially the extra point earned on more revenue sources. What did we give up? Anything?
Well, the term went to, in the past, we've tried to get by with 5-year renewals. This year, the renewal goes to 10 years. I don't really think that that's giving anything up, because we did the what's called the PEG investment went up to $15,000, and there's other financial incentives for the village. So I was satisfied with the 10-year term, and I think that is a good situation also for the village. So there was an adjustment of the term, but I think when the term comes to when the term approaches the end, the franchise holder is allowed to start contacting the village 3 years before the end of the term. Cablevision never did that. Altice has started doing that. Altice has started notifying villages. They've gone through the list and figured out when these terms are ending, and they started notifying villages 3 years in advance. So if we did a 5-year term, in only 2 years, we'd be talking about a renewal again. So it really didn't seem to make sense, and we left it at 10 years. And as I said, I think there were a lot of other things in the contract that changed favorably, that we could have it for 10 years without a concern.
Thank you.
Well, I think you did a terrific job. I mean, we went through, I can't remember how many meetings,
And Mayor, your AC broke, and there were some.
But the AC broke, it was hot.
We just told you.
You were stuck in one of those?
We shut it off just to get it.
So,
we got the extra point.
There was some heated discussions, and I think it turned out very well.
Thank you. I enjoyed working with you and as I said, your administration. But I want to say that every word in this agreement was reviewed this was new ground for the village because it was a completely different contract with a new company. And in the end, I want to say Joan Gilroy came back. I don't know how many of you know Joan Gilroy, but Joan Gilroy ended up coming back in the end to sort of, put a bow on this and help us get through the last part of it. And that to the credit of Joan and the Altice.
Yep.
So thank you. If I don't, again, it's my recommendation that you approve the agreement. I don't know if you're going to do that tonight or at some other point. I can stay and answer questions if there are any.
Well, you may want to stick around until we go for a resolution, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question, because the index lists up to page 266 or 300, but
Yeah,
we
there's a
only-
typo. There's that's
The old
there's some kind
typo.
of there's some kind of something that's plagued this all through it, where if you omit the last number, it's the accurate page. So if it says page 211, it's page 21. I noticed that tonight.
Okay.
We've had there's something in the program that I don't want to say Altice, but it was
All right.
something is in the program that has messed up the page numbers since the first day of this, but that's what it is. If you the 3-digit page numbers, if you omit the last number, it's correct.
I was going to say, that's a pretty hefty contract at 460 pages.
But otherwise, it's fine.
Especially without AC.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Evelyn?
See right away that I'm neither a technician nor is this my area of the law, but there's a clause that bothers me a little. I'd like to have it explained. On page 28.3, all PEG channels provided by the franchise may be offered in any format using any transmission method. Well, let me ask you, first of all, do we get a full screen transmission, and is it of the same quality as the commercial channels that we have access to? And if not, why not? Thank you.
But Joe can answer that, or Altice can answer that?
Sure. It is, so we broadcast our PEG channels in standard definition. The fix that we provided was to ensure that the aspect ratio, the way it's broadcasted, is in the same aspect ratio as other standard definition channels on our lineup. So unfortunately, we are unable to provide an HD channel, but in the future, there could be different technologies that could allow that.
We're getting on the commercial channels. Why is it poor?
It's very technical. It has to do with the amount of bandwidth available for broadcasting. It's exponentially more bandwidth.
Is it a matter of money?
No, it's a matter of space on our network.
Bandwidth. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a matter of money.
Good question. Good answer.
Charlie's coming up.
Charlie with documents in hand. Uh-oh.
Charlie, I
Good
will
evening.
say, was always instrumental in these negotiations.
Charles Styler, I'm the videographer for the Village of Southampton. I have actually been working on franchises agreement on behalf of this village for almost 20 years now. And what was just brought up is the aspect ratio of the channel itself. And for information purposes, the aspect ratio of the channel itself has not changed. It's still a 4:3 aspect ratio. And I did make up a hand sketch for anybody that would like to look at it.
We'll put it on the
Why don't you tell the
TV.
videographer?
I'm sorry, I can't be in both places at once.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to share.
So what this amounts to, if you look at it, is the blacked out area. If you looked at channel 22 right now and turned it on, you would see a 16:9 aspect ratio video that is blacked in, and we call that letterboxing. So there's a black border all the way around it. And the reason for that is because all we're getting right now is a 4:3 aspect ratio channel, but we're putting a 16:9 into it. So that's why it's like that. If it was a 16:9 channel, it would fill the entire screen. We're also transmitting up to the head end in Riverhead, a high definition signal. So that means that we're not getting high definition any longer. What they're doing is changing it to a standard definition signal because the channel is a standard definition channel. So when we do videos and we look at sketches like this, or board presentations, ARB, ZBA, or something like that, and we have detailed plans, by changing it to standard definition is actually reducing the quality of what you're looking at. Now, I'm not suggesting that the cable company is required in any way to provide a high-definition 16:9 channel. They are not. Federal law prohibits the municipalities from dealing with the technical standards of the channel. But if you look on page 28, and I think it was mentioned by a person in the audience, 3, it says all PEG channels provided by the franchisee may be offered in any format using any transmission method. And I would suggest to you that that particular paragraph should be removed from the franchise agreement, because what it's saying, in my opinion, I'm not an attorney, is that for the next 10 years, they can put on the channel any way that they feel like it, like this. So that's my recommendation. Other than that, I think the people working on the franchise agreement did a very good job. I don't know if you have any questions?
We would never have known.
Interesting.
What?
Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay. Just for clarification anyway on that.
Counselor, any opinion on this?
Joe, do you have a comment on that?
What on that, Counselor?
Well, there's a couple of things that came up. One is the availability of an HD channel. So let me just address that. It was confirmed by Altice, I think, to the village's satisfaction, that given the present bandwidth, there's no availability for HD TV for the public access channel. As we understand it, there is a plan for Altice to expand its bandwidth in the near future, and the village has already reviewed that, has been made aware of that. At that time, that may be available, it may not be. There's not going to be a guarantee by Altice with respect to that. With respect to this issue, the achievement that I referred to had to do with the way that the image was processed. As I understand it, I'm not a technician, but as I understand it, it was the way that the image that's transmitted by the village to Altice is processed before it comes back before it's broadcast on your public access channel. Prior to this, or prior to the change a few months ago, as I understand it, it used to take a significant amount of time for the village or the town to reprocess that signal before it could be broadcast on your public access channel. And due to an improvement made by Altice, that time has now been eliminated. Did I say that correctly? And that was the achievement that I spoke about. As I understand it, prior to that, when documents were broadcast on your public access channel from meetings, there was a distortion in the document that had to do with the way that the image was processed. Now that distortion no longer exists because of this new way of processing it. So if you were in other words, if you were looking at a survey, if you were watching a planning board meeting or a village board meeting, and somebody held up a site plan and it was broadcast, the dimensions would not be properly proportioned in what you're watching on TV. This is as I understand it. And that has now been corrected. Hopefully Charlie agrees with me. No, he doesn't. Okay, well. But if this is if this, I thought this had been resolved. If it has,
I thought it had been resolved, too.
if it hasn't been, then we should, shouldn't, it should hold over, a month, and then we'll get this resolved, until your next meeting. You could either leave the public, probably leave the public hearing open.
Yep.
And then I'll work again to try to tie this up.
Okay.
But there was a meeting where we sat at and everybody, I thought, had agreed that this had been resolved. Obviously, it hasn't.
So did I.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, he's coming back.
For the rebuttal.
Not to belabor this situation, the only thing I was recommending to you is on page 28, to take that number 3, all PEG channels provided by the franchisee may be offered in any format using any transmission method. I would be happy if just that paragraph were removed, because then sometime in the future, if the Public Service Commission determines otherwise, maybe you would be able to get a full-screen channel. And I'm happy to hear that there's a possibility in the future that Altice, upgrading technical situations within their corporation, their company, might be able to provide that 16:9 channel, but as high definition. Yes, they did avoid stretching, or not stretching, but squashing the picture is what was happening before. So if you uploaded a 16:9 channel, video, what was happening before was it was being squashed into this 4:3 aspect ratio. So there was a distortion of the images that were on the screen. They have since then solved that problem as far as the distortion of it by making the 16:9 into the 4:3. That's 16:9 also. But it hasn't solved the problem of filling the screen, and it hasn't solved the problem of taking it down from high definition to standard definition. So the only thing, again, I'm recommending is 3, remove from the franchise agreement. Thank you.
So I can respond to that. That item is federally mandated and supported by the PSC in terms of our transmission ability. The federal government creates the standards on how we put forth our transmission, and we are not able to change that transmission of capabilities. So that's it's not something that we really control or are able to remove from the agreement.
I would think that there's been enough discussion that I would probably ask that the board, suggest that the board hold this over to just hold the hearing open to the next meeting, and I'll report back to the board. I'll investigate this once again and report back to the board, confirm this one way or the other.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor?
So with that said,
Thank you for the graphics, Charlie.
make a motion to, for our intents and purposes, to the next meeting, which is October,
September 23rd.
September 23rd.
25th?
25th is CSC acquisition.
2 weeks, it's in 2 weeks.
Or October 1?
Or would you prefer the October?
You want October 13th? What's better?
Yeah.
Which would you like?
October 11th?
I apologize.
Calendar here.
Thank you.
September 25th, a Tuesday, or October 11th, a Thursday?
October 11th.
10, 11?
Okay. So
They say
redo that motion. I'll make a motion for keeping the CSC acquisition and Cablevision franchise agreement renewal for all intent purposes until the next meeting on October 11th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Once again, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Boy, I thought we had that resolved. Surprise. I make a motion to open the Board of Architectural Review, Training and Appointment of Alternative Members.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, you held a public hearing on August 9th. At that meeting, you were required to refer this to the Suffolk County Planning Commission by letter dated September 12th. The Planning Commission considered the proposed local law to be a matter of local determination. So, assuming you have no corrections or changes, you're in a position to close the hearing and take an action on this tonight, pending comments from the public.
Are there any comments from the public? Evelyn?
You could appoint whoever you wanted, and there would be no difference whatsoever as long as you have Albert W. Robinson advising that board. If you would like to know the number of frauds and the number of distortions of the law that have been happening over the past 12 years, I've been giving you some. One example, of course, was to call 28 Raymond's adjacent to Roscoe Place.
I understand that, Evelyn, but that's not relevant to what we're doing here.
I know, but it's just not going to do anything.
Well, no, but you can hold your comment to the next public comment.
I'll be glad to. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
And then we won't hear about the association, right?
Well,
Another big one.
So, any other comments? With that, I make a motion to close the Board of Architectural Review, Training and Appointment of Alternative Members.
Second?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
You have in your package a proposed resolution for notice of adoption. I don't know what local law number that would be, Steve?
I believe it's number 9.
That resolution would authorize a notice of adoption and the filing of the law with the Secretary of State.
So I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution of adoption on a local law amending 116-31 with respect to the organization of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, training and appointment of alternative members.
Second?
Second.
Take roll call vote. Trustee Az?
Aye.
Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Mayor Irving?
Aye.
Trustee McCann?
Aye.
Trustee Hatcher?
Aye.
So moved.
Then we have the similar with the Board of Appeals. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the Board of Appeals, training and appointment of alternative members.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, similar to the last one, you held a public hearing, was opened and adjourned till this evening on August 9th, and it was pending receipt of the Suffolk County Planning Commission report. You also received a letter dated September 12th indicating it was a matter for local determination. Like the last local law, this provides for some organizational requirements for the Board of Appeals, but most importantly allows the village board to consider appointing alternate members, and also requires certain training.
This would be local law 10 if we proceeded.
Excuse me?
This would be local law 10 if we proceeded?
Yes.
Any comments? Any comments from the trustees? I'll make a motion to close the Board of Appeals, training and appointment of alternate members.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution here, which I'll make a motion on the resolution of adoption of a local law amending 116-24 with respect to the organization of the Board of Appeals, training and appointment of alternative members.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, trustee Yaz. Aye. Trustee Allen.
Aye.
Mayor Irving.
Aye.
Trustee McCann.
Aye.
Trustee Hatcher.
Aye.
And then we have the planning board. So I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the planning board, training and appointment of alternative members.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
It's like the last two, you held the public hearing, commenced on August 9th, and kept the matter open until this evening for the purpose of obtaining a Suffolk County Planning Commission report. You received that letter yesterday, and they determined it to be a matter of local determination. This also recognizes that our planning board, there was no place in the code, was actually established by a planning board, or village board resolution dating back to June 3rd, 1927. So our planning board has been in business since that date. It also, pursuant to the state law, recognizes the organization, similar to the other boards, provides for training and the appointment of alternate members if the village board so chooses.
Any comments from the public? Any comments from the trustees?
Just one question. It's a fiscal year, July 1 through June 30. Since we're looking to adopt it 1 quarter in, it still holds in terms of the training has to be completed by June 30th.
Well, the next local law
And
actually
it's-
speaks to training.
Okay. Okay.
Close it? No. So I'll make a motion to close the planning board training and appointment of alternative members.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a resolution of adoption of the local law amending Chapter 19, Planning Board of the Village Code to add a new Article 2 with respect to the organization of the planning board, training and appointment of alternative members.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, trustee Yaz. Aye. Trustee Allen.
Aye.
Mayor Irving.
Aye.
Trustee McCann.
Aye.
Trustee Hatcher.
Change. I make a motion to open the training requirements for administrative boards.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this matter was also scheduled, and you opened the public hearing on August 9th, kept it open for the Suffolk County Planning Commission report, which you received a letter dated September 12th, indicating it's a matter for local determination. This is an amendment, added a new article to our zoning code. It currently, the state law has certain training requirements. You're enabled under the state law to enhance and define what those training requirements are and some other aspects. Most importantly, those training requirements under state law only apply to the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, but this local law, you're exercising your municipal home rule powers to also require your Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Board to also receive that training. As to the training, it indicates that it does go based on your fiscal year, starting July 1st through June 30th. With respect to the Planning Board and the Zoning Board, they're already required to have those hours in. By adoption of this, your ARB would also be required to have those in by next June 30th.
Thank
And
you.
it's 4 hours per year.
Any comments, Susan?
Good evening. Susan Stevenson. I'm currently the chair of the Village ARB. I have done the training, which is the SCVOA offers training once or twice a year, really at odd times. The upcoming session is October 18th, usually an hour's drive away. But I'm interested in the topics. They do not pertain to the Architectural Review Board for the most part. They are really have to do with the law, which has to do with zoning and planning. So I personally, like I can tell you what's on the schedule
what, I've signed up for this. Here it is. Sorry, slow load. So the topics are Zoning and Planning 101, what you need to know, whose franchise is it anyway, protecting village rights and franchise agreements and renewals, which is October 18th, if you can hold out a little, the new SECRA amendments, what they are and what they mean, or NICOM legislative update. Those are the topics. Those are the only topics available. I actually like the last two. I'm not that interested in all those Zoning and Planning 101. However, none of this particularly applies to what I do and what my board does. So there are very few. I have been trained once. Zach Studenroth set up historic training, and it was in Sag Harbor. But we had to, I don't know, that was a big, long, he had to really coordinate with other villages because they had to get someone from Albany. I found that training to be quite helpful in a quirky, I'm interested in quirky details a lot of the time, so I'm not sure if it really has enhanced my knowledge for my job. But I would just say I'm not against having people trained, but if you're looking to have my board trained in what we do, nothing is offered that I know about. And so I don't know. There's the New York State, NICOM actually has some online, which I think there's a password that you can use, but even those are pretty much not in the field of historic preservation or in architectural review. So I just ask you to bear that in mind. I'm completely fine. I'm going to this, but it is not, I don't think I don't want you to feel that the training that is offered will enhance the knowledge of our board. It enhances my knowledge of what other boards do, for sure. So anyway, I thought I should mention that as long as I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in that regard, Mayor, Section 11643 actually took into consideration what Susan just raised, and the village board is charged with determining what are the seminars, workshops, or continuing education, and that should be done in consultation with the chairmen of each board, particular as to how it applies to their board. There are a number of sources of information. We understand that the architectural review may not be in the standard mainstream of some of these offered by NICOM or SCOVA or whatever, but there are a number of other sources, and I believe we should, and continue with the chairman's help, start to identify that so that we can make sure that there is training and it's appropriate for each of the boards. In addition, I know one of the issues that this board recognized when you were considering your ethics law is that ethics, particular as it relates to the operation of our boards, is something that some training we're looking for, getting training from our outside counsel with respect to our employees, and the board was going to consider that 1 or 2 hours may be applied, that ethics training, to this training as well, which is something that is pretty routine under those kind of training requirements. So there are a number of sources, and I understand the next step, if the board adopts this tonight, would be to start that discussion with all the chairmen, chairpeople, persons on the board, start to identify that and make sure each of the board members have had the opportunity to get the required educational courses.
I think that was our original discussions when we were looking at it. And there are other sources which I think this board needs to identify and work with the chair people so that you don't waste your time.
And it's not unusual that the Architectural Review Board and Historic Preservation Board participates in training in other municipalities either. This is not a novel concept.
No, where the courses are given and what the source is something that we just need to recognize, that they're recognizable, people undertaking and giving you proper training. So
that are value add to the board.
On the ethics training, That would be tremendously valuable, especially with the new ethics law, because as a board chair, I can't be on top of everything that I try to be, but it would be good if everyone had to do that, had to know what's ethical and what's not, and it would be, everyone would have the same training, so there would be no arguments. Because really my job partially is administrative, but I would prefer to put my effort into looking at plans and deciding what's appropriate for the village, and not being like a ethics policeman for my board. And the new ethics law is really detailed, so I think if everyone on the boards understood that it was their responsibility personally as a board member, and that everyone was treated the same under this new law, and they were personally responsible, it would be extremely helpful. So I'm all in favor of that, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Our village administrator has already set up tentative dates, so mark your calendar for October 24th, I think it was.
25th, yeah.
We'll have 2 sessions in those on that day, and we'll be rolling out more sessions, and it should be in common language, so.
Would it not be an idea to have you and the Board of Trustees ask a certified law school to come up with some programs for these people? Because I think asking Mr. McFarland, for example, for what the training should consist of, he would give you the village code and that's it, and that's not it. There is, constitutional law, there is state law, and I don't think that it's fair to the chairman of these committees to be the ones to decide what they should know. Why don't you ask a law school to help?
Well, it's a joint project. And in the past, we have brought in attorneys and people to give discussions to various boards. And that's not an unusual thing. And I always found when I was on the planning board that they were very useful. So, any other comments? With that, I'll make a motion to close the training requirements for administrative boards.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And I'll make a motion or resolution of adoption on a local law amending Chapter 116 zoning to add a new article to respect to training requirements for administrative boards.
Article 8, actually.
Second.
Article 8, excuse me.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, trustee Yaz? Aye. Trustee Allen?
Aye.
Mayor Irving?
Aye.
Trustee McCann?
Aye.
Trustee Hatcher?
Aye.
Great, that's good. All good stuff.
Classes begin.
Classes begin, yeah.
Well, so many of the board members already attend training, and
Yes, they do.
so many went with us last year, Susan, when we attended, so we have a lot of interest.
Was that 4 hours?
It was, yes, and they covered I don't want to have it, sorry, I'm out of order. Excuse me.
Continue with the public hearings. I make a motion to open the deer fence law.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. We've taken a close look at the deer fence, and I've been looking at New York State DEC and various other municipalities that have the same issue that we do with deer, because, I tell you, I had a small fence around my garden, and then when the garden started to die off, I went, I got to cut this all back, and I'll have a big compost heap. So I opened up the deer fence, and they just took care of the whole garden. There's nothing left but little sticks, and I don't even have to worry about the compost heap. So, I'm well aware of their appetite. But with that said, we're looking very closely at deer management and deer fencing. And I don't think that either one personally can be done without the other. and consequently, a little bit further in the meeting, you'll see a discussion on changing some of our local discharge laws so that they conform more with New York State DEC, and we have the ability to be able to do some culling in the village. So, is there anybody with further comments on deer fencing?
So we're not going to do this until we get work on management first.
They both need to go hand in
But we haven't
hand.
started management yet, so.
Correct.
So what are we doing with this local law?
Well, it's up to all of you, but my personal feeling is I would keep the deer fence law open, and we would change our regulations, which we need to open a public hearing on discharge of firearms, and then when we can bring the two of them together, and then we will do so.
Okay.
Yeah. But is it any, I'm sure you have a...
Good evening, board members. Katerina Grinkov, 2 Milton, 51 Hill Street, Southampton. I've pretty much exhausted my comments at this point, but just want to understand the estimated time frame so I can let the Whitefield condominium residents know. What are we looking at? Is it 6 months? Is it 1 year? I mean, just so we know.
Well, the intent is to open the public hearing on the discharge of firearms to change our law so that we're able to do some deer culling. And the next meeting for that, we have to open
October,
up.
scheduled for October 11th. We're scheduled for October 11th.
Okay, so it'd be October 11th, we'd open the public hearing on that. Assuming that there's not any pushback on it, we can do a resolution, close it, and get that done. And the deer season opens up in October, I think October 1st, and then runs through the end of the year, so that there will still be a time frame.
So do you think you'll enact the local fence, the proposed fence law?
Then we'll go back and we'll look at the fence law and the deer culling.
All right, thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Robert Mullaney, 570 Hampton Road, Southampton Meadows condominium complex. We have formed a deer committee. I'm on the deer committee since I have experience with deer fencing. As you may know, Southampton Meadows used to be a nursery way back, and has beautiful landscaping and trees. And that's quickly being destroyed over the past 2 years by the deer coming in. We have deer living on the property now. I'm sure you understand all about Lyme disease, and there are serious issues there with Lyme disease and related to deaths. We have deer destroying the property. I've heard of instances where deer is taking a swim in the pool. Not ours, but other ones. So there are a lot of issues here. I don't see, there's no really natural predator to deers, right? We have the bow and arrow, we have a gun, and we have a car. The culling aspect I've been involved in before, it works a little bit, but it's not a long-term solution. It's not a long-term solution. It's going to be costly, and you have to continue it for a long time. It doesn't solve the problem. Yes, it may thin it out, but at the same time, you're going to have the Sierra Club right at your doorsteps. So as long as you realize that, I think they should be separated, the deer fencing aspect and the culling. I don't see the connection there, because the culling is not going to stop the deer from coming onto the property. I think you have done some good work here. I've read over the deer fencing that's been drawn up, the bylaws or whatever want to call that. Don't agree with everything, but I think you've done a good job there, and I would ask you to go ahead and approve this. We need your help. I can't do anything. I can't make a recommendation to do this the right way. We got a lot going on in the village, and it's not all good with deer fences. Some of this deer fences being put up by the landscapers. It's not going to survive, those fences. And the upkeep of these fences are an important aspect you have to look at. So I don't want to go into a lot of technicalities. What I'm here to ask is, please, we're coming to the winter's coming on, and we can't do anything, and I can't make a recommendation to our board until you approve the deer fencing bylaws that you have had written up by your own people. So please take this serious. It's more than just me. It's about the community here. It's getting destroyed. Let's take action. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, there's a lot more to deer fencing and fencing in the village than just keeping out the deer. I mean, without a doubt, the deer are a real big population problem, and that needs to be resolved. But I'm not sure this board here is all in agreement that the fencing is the best way to go. Mm-hmm. So the board here is in agreement that if we look at both aspects of deer management and fencing, then there is a chance there.
Can I have a comment? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have experience with deer fencing. I have a country house out in New Jersey. I have deer fencing, I have cattle grades, separate things, and gates. And then the whole aspect is maintaining it. Cullen, we've done in our town, okay? And you're going to get serious knockback and bad publicity by doing it. You always will. It works. But that's not the solution. The one solution to protecting your property is deer fencing. That's the only thing. You said it earlier. When you take down your fence, boom, they're there.
Oh, it was great.
But the Cullen's not going to stop. Instead of having 10 deer, you'll have 3 deer. And those 3 deer can do damage within days. So I don't see, I've looked at spraying. I've tried that in the past. I've tried, the different solutions. You want dogs, chickens, all that. I mean, it's crazy, some of these. The fencing is the only true thing that's going to you got to keep the deer out of the property.
So the fencing protects your property, but it pushes the deer to the other person's property.
Well, then, we've had property. There was a reserve, I believe, over on Flying Point that's being built on. Yeah, they're coming out. Yeah, I agree that you can call a little bit and thin them out, but that's not going to correct the problem.
No, but I think when you have herds, the way we do here, it's not just 1, 2, or 3. We have herds in our neighborhoods. And so what we're trying to do is thin those herds. And the professional who came and talked to us said, they'll still be there, but you won't see them when we reduce the herds. And his comment was, when you have herds like this and you put up the deer fencing, it pushes it to the neighbor and onto the road. And when we push the deer onto the road, that's when people hit them with their cars and can be seriously hurt. So our only delay in doing the fencing is only because we want to thin the herd and then put up your fence. Because there won't be that many deer around once you put up your fencing. If we put up our fencing now, you're going to push them to the neighbor, you're going to push them to the road, and that's our concern with this. It's not that we're never going to have deer fencing, we are.
Well, I ask you to try to accelerate it. It's been going on for a while.
I have a huge field behind me. Mm-hmm. Community Preservation purchased it many, many years ago. It used to be a big farm. I have fencing. I have green wire fencing up in my yard. I don't pay that much attention to it. I see them out there. It's like a petting zoo out there. I'm not kidding you. There's probably 5 or 6 females, and all the babies are running all around in the open part of the field. But I went out the other day and I was looking. They have practically ripped down my entire green wire fencing because they probably, and they've eaten all my flowers in there. They come up like this, they push down on the meadow, and then they can get over. So fencing, it has to be a certain kind of fencing, otherwise they're gonna.
I agree with you 100%, and I've looked at I'm not going to go into it, but yes, you should have slip knot fencing. It needs to go all the way down, because they'll come up and on the bottom too. So yeah, I mean, it's a whole maintenance program you need there.
And it's not that we're not going to have the deer fencing. We just don't want to do it right now. That's basically it. Right?
Right. Any other comments? I will throw out to you that in reading New York State DEC laws and regulations on deer hunting, they made a claim, and I can't remember the exact date, but it was the early 1900s, that the deer population on the East Coast was reduced to one county, which was Adirondack in upstate New York, and there were no deer anywhere else. And when you look at it today, you just go, oh my God.
But read an article, go in and Google white-tailed deer, and see how the population of the white-tailed deer across the United States has exploded. So it's not just here, it's everywhere. No.
Oh, it is terrible. It's all the great plants we put around our houses. We feed them well. Any other comments? So with that, I make a motion to keep the deer fence law open for all purposes until October 11th.
Second?
Michael, just as you have on your agenda, later in your agenda, that proposed law that would amend that section, chapter 57 of your code that currently prohibits the discharge of firearms, including bow and arrow, within 500 feet of any buildings. As you know, the state law was changed. The DEC regulations say you can't discharge a gun within 500 feet of the residence, a crossbow 250 feet of a residence, and a bow and arrow 150 feet. So our law presently prohibits people who ordinarily would have a DEC permit to hunt, so long as they're in an area that they could do this within 150 feet if it was by bow and arrow. So based on the review of the deer management laws, the suggestion is at least we amend our code to be consistent with what the state law does. I drafted a proposed local law to amend Chapter 57 that would allow an exception just for bow and arrow to coincide with the state law as far as 150 feet. And the recommendation is to schedule that for a public hearing on October 11th, so that would mirror what you were just discussing. So I thought maybe just taking it out a turn here, and if you do that, at least those who are interested in it can see you moving forward at that date.
Okay, we can go out of order here, I guess.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
That is...
Item 4 on the discussion items?
Yes. Item 4 under the discussion items is a discharge of firearms. And as council has pointed out, our law doesn't match and coincide with New York State DEC law in regards to discharge of firearms and hunting. So we have a proposal to do a public hearing on that, and the respective changes to allow an individual to be closer to a house so that in our community where we have a lot of density, an individual still can have an opportunity to hunt.
With a bow and arrow.
With a bow and arrow, yeah.
Chief, did you want to comment anything on that? Since we moved it up? Since we're going to put it for public hearing?
The one thing I would say, reading it is, it'd be helpful for us if it was, this certainly says official duty, but if you could put something more direct, allowing the police department to train, because we do all those things inside of those limits for training.
Okay.
So.
You're talking about the exception? There is already an exception
Yeah, it's
in the law.
pretty vague, though. Just says by official duty.
So what would you?
I mean, obviously, Mr. Bruin would have to write it up, but we shoot pepper balls, we shoot ammunition, we shoot bean bags, and if we had to, shoot our regular guns. And we do the other, in training, a lot of times we do the pepper ball training right behind our building, and we wouldn't necessarily, I mean, you could say we are exempt, but I'd like something more.
More clear?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. You guys don't want to take up compound bows, do you?
I think there's some guys that probably would.
That's
Thank
nice.
you.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Any other comments? The one thing I would say is that, we aren't really looking to ease the law on discharge of firearms. I don't think we want any firearms in the village. So council was trying to pinpoint it towards bow and arrow, and the caveat to that is I would always require anybody using a bow and arrow to be at a minimum of 25 feet up, whether it's a tree stand or they do make a ton of blinds that are on stands, and the purpose of that is that any shot within 30 yards is straight down almost, and there is a minimal risk of injury. So, no comments? So I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing on the discharge of firearms, which would be October 11th.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have one communications to the board from the Southampton Soccer Club. Our fall soccer season is fast approaching, and practice game schedules are upon us. Southampton Soccer Club is continuing to grow and will now field host to 19 boys teams and 7 girls teams, the most ever, competing in the Long Island Junior Soccer League that will require field use for practice and games. Because of the growth of the club, we now have recreational soccer for the children who don't wish to travel. The club has grown to include over 350 children. We anticipate the need for fields to be on weekdays from 4 to 8 p.m. for practices and Saturday and Sunday between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. for games. A copy of our certificate of insurance will be mailed to you later this fall. The renewal date is September this year. On behalf of SSC Limited, I would like to request permission to use the Downs Family Park soccer fields beginning August 27th and continuing throughout this fall season until November 30th. August 27th, August 31st, 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., 4 p.m., and 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. September 3rd to the 30th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. And September 3rd, November 30th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. As always, thank you very much for your consideration. If you require further information, don't hesitate to phone my office. Tim Rump, President.
We've been using this for years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It does make a motion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'll make a motion, the Southampton Soccer SSC Ltd. have permission to use the Down Family Park soccer fields beginning August 27th and continuing throughout this fall season until November 30th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolutions, resolved that the reading of the minutes for the public session of August 21st, 2018 be dispensed with, and those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and that the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the claims for the warrants dated September 13th, 2018, totaling $283,110.45, warrant 7 general fund, $6,405, warrant 4 expense trust fund, $432,307.44, warrant 5 capital reserve fund, and the village payrolls from the period from August 17th to September 13th, 2018 be ordered and approved. Can I have a motion? Second?
Second?
Discussion? Page 1, Black Gold Industry, $1,923.40, asphalt patch for the Highway Department. Buzz True Chevrolet Olds, garage parts, $1,691.10. Carrier Corporation, HVAC service contract for the Fire Department, $1,655. Cast Productions, August video services, $2,520. Cintas First Aid and Safety, first aid supplies, $1,758. Coastal Fire System Water Rescue Equipment for the Fire Department, $21,1827. Cook Insurance Installment, $2,136.40. CSA Employee Benefit Fund Insurance Premium for September, $29,995.60. Dependable Hydraulic Bucket Truck Repair, $1,118.27. David Spellman Barrett Legal Fees for the Rosewood Realty Case, $7,402.50. East End Hose Testing for the Fire Department, $9,403.50. East End Underground Utilities, camera installation at Halsey and Meadow Lane. Antoinette Edwards, minutes services for the Planning Board and ARB, $1,300. First Presbyterian Church, lease payment for the parking lot for September, $3,000. Fluid Imagery Computer Services, $3,165. Page 5, Fundamental Business Services, Court Collection Fees, $3,598.50. Galls LLC, PD Uniforms, $2,212.08. General Code Publishers, an update to the Village Code, $2,179.40. Granger, parts for the supplies for the Building and Parks Department, $3,478.05. Page 6, part of the Hamptons, Community Development Block Grant, $6,310. Herrick Hardware Supplies, $1,514.77. Johnson Electrical Construction Corp., Traffic Signal Maintenance and Repair, $2,272.83. Page 7, Liberty Ironworks, Fire Department IT Cabinet, $4,114.76. Malvesi Equipment, Garage Supplies, $1,583.92. Martin's General Contracting, roof repairs to the Historical Museum, $7,270. Moore Medical, ambulance supplies, $1,055.28. Mutt-Mitts for the Highway Department, $2,309.65. Nelson Pope and Voorhees, consulting fees for August, $16,617. Norsec and Son, carting fees, $2,350. North American Rescue LLC, PD supplies, $1,715. Office of State Controller, $26,235.47. Fees for July and August. Optimum August bill, $2,380.24. Phillips Lighting, LED streetlights, $16,920. Page 11, PSE&G, August services, $23,211.49. Rapid Recovering tows for the Police Department, $3,460. Ronco Cleaning Supplies, $1,899.28. Page 12, Sadie Levine, fee for our installment fee for our audit, $9,941.67. Southampton Christmas lights, removable tree lights, $5,000. Southampton Daycare Community Development Block Grant, $6,310. Sprague Operating Reserves, 3,000 gallons of gasoline. Suffolk Water Authority for through September 1st, $2,388.15. Page 14, Vince Toomey Legal Fees, $3,073.72. Town of Southampton Dump Fees, $1,528.75. Vehicle Tracking Solutions, GPS for August, $1,223.49. Verizon Wireless Bill for August, $2,399.12. Page 15, Visiontron PD Barricades, $2,689. W&G Services, AC Repair, $3,667.01. WB Mason, Office Supplies, $2,804.18. And Weber and Gorn, AC Repairs at Southampton Arts Center, $1,565. Next warrant is the trust warrant. Everguard surfacing deposit for the striping and paving of the basketball courts up at Lowell Apprentice Park, $4,350. VHB engineering permit work at Agawam Bass, $1,312. Last warrant is the capital reserve warrant. All island blower and sheet metal, fire department kitchen compliance repairs, $13,250. Alliance System Integrators, the cameras installed at Halsey and Meadow Lane, $65,492.75. Eagle Chevrolet, 3 police department vehicles, $111,958.95. Jeffrey Butler, PE, payment towards the redesign of the ambulance barn to $10,000. And Motorola Solutions ambulance radios, $231,605.74. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Item 3, resolve that the Board of Trustees hereby approves waiving the building application fee in the amount of $7,861.12 for the Southampton African American Museum of the East End. Can I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolve that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the bid in the amount of $386,269 from Lipsky Enterprises, Bayport, New York, for the restoration of the Nugent Carriage House as recommended by Chaliff and Rogers, P.C. Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Item 6, resolve.
So that's covered by a grant.
Yeah, the other bids were 517 and 584, so they were
But we also have a grant on that, a good percent.
50% match on it, right?
Right. But I think the grant was...
Grants is 210,
Yeah.
but it'll cover also some of Chaliff and Rogers fees.
Right, okay.
Item 6, resolve that the Board of Trustees hereby approves Kevin Maughan as a probationary member of the Hook and Ladder Company Number 1, effective September 13th, 2018. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves Dominic Abady as a probationary member of Agawam Hose Company Number 1, effective September 13th, 2018. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the attached scheduled budget transfers to eliminate line item overages for the period ending September 13th, 2018. Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Item 1, $625 into clerk part-time from clerk personal services. Item 2, $10,000 into buildings equipment from buildings contractual. Number 3, $20,000 into police equipment from the contingency account. Number 4, $5,000 into street lighting supplies from street lighting electric. And the last one is $15,000 into Cooper's Beach salaries, with $10,005 coming from equipment, $1,500 from overtime, and $3,000 from miscellaneous. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 9, resolve that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following payments from the Capital Reserve Fund, subject to permissive referendum. All island blower and sheet metal, $13,250 from the Fire Facilities Reserve. Alliance System Integrators, $65,492.75 from the Major Equipment Reserve. Eagle Chevrolet, $111,958.95 from Major Equipment Reserve. And Motorola Solutions, $231,605.74 from the Major Equipment Reserve. Have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Can you explain this all?
Sure. This is everything that was on a capital reserve warrant.
Yeah.
But it just has to go out for permissive referendum. Last item is resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Nicholas Cogan as a part-time laborer for the Highway Department at an hourly rate of $15. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, discussion items. Annual event, Little Lucy's Pet Parade on Saturday, October 27th,
Can I ask a
2018.
question on that?
Sure.
I thought I remember we changed her from Saturday to Sunday. Is that possible?
No, we changed the location. Originally, she always did it in front of her store, and last year,
Oh,
based
yeah,
on
that's
the
right.
code enforcement recommendation, we moved it across the street to start at Agawam.
No, but I thought I remember years ago, and maybe I'm wrong, some of the shops, am I dreaming this? I thought some of the shops didn't want her to have it on Saturday. Or maybe it
That was the Ragamuffin.
Or Ragamuffin, because they moved to Sunday.
Yeah, we moved the Ragamuffin.
Ragamuffin is
Sunday
Sunday.
instead of
We moved the
Saturday.
kids, we left the dogs.
It's true, it's true.
Screwed up world, but that's the way that ended up. Who the hell knows?
Okay.
Got a motion to approve Little Lucy's Pet Parade on Saturday, October 27th?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, and then Wayne, we have 2 public hearings to schedule for Layton Avenue and Hildreth.
So these are both on parking restrictions. This is a follow-up to the public hearings that you held during the summer with respect to Layton Avenue. So as was discussed, and several residents suggested that you sort of flip-flop and revise the parking restrictions on Layton. So what this does is currently on the north side, there's no parking between midnight and 6 a.m., so there's parking during the day, but this is where you had all the complaints that all the vehicles were parking, blocking driveways and the like on the north side. So this proposal would prohibit parking at all times on the north side. And then on the south side, in front of the condos and the couple residences there, it was prohibited at all times. Now you would be allowed. The only exceptions, we also added a provision that in recognition of your other issues of within 20 feet of the intersections. So the intersection of North Main Street and then the intersection of Hildreth, you wouldn't allow the parking within 20 feet.
Right.
So that's what the restrictions would change on Layton Avenue. So the parking that you would allow would be in front of the condominiums.
Yeah, and you also have from Hildreth to Elm, no parking midnight to 6. So again, you're allowing
That's
effectively the park.
existing.
Correct. So
That's not being changed.
So what we're changing is to allow parking at all times in front of the condominiums.
Basically.
Yes.
And removing it from.
So that's proposed local law, number one. The other was that originally this was all prompted by some interest in doing parking restrictions on Hildreth. I don't know if the board wanted to continue. What I got out of the hearings is that you might be willing to do it on one side of the street and leave the other side. So this proposal would be on the east side of Hildreth to prohibit parking 12 midnight to 6 a.m. And then on the west side, there wouldn't be any restrictions, particular near Layton Avenue where the condos are, you wouldn't have any restrictions except for within 20 feet of the intersection. And this doesn't, I think you left out Jennings. I think the board agreed that there was no need to put any restrictions on Jennings, so.
So the Hildreth on the east side, no parking midnight to 6. On the west side, no parking.
Only within 20 feet of the intersection. Otherwise, there's no restrictions at all.
Says all times, yeah.
But it's only
On the
20
west
feet
side,
within,
there's no
on the west side, within 20 feet of the intersection.
Right.
Isn't that where people from Layton Avenue need to park?
But not that close to the intersection.
They can park there, but they have to be 20
That's what
feet
they
off.
want to be able to.
That follows the state law. That's what came out of the other hearings, is
think
that the
they're doing
state
that
law
anyway.
pretty much says 20 feet of an intersection.
So 20 mirrors. I guess what I was really questioning the 20 number, and that mirrors state. Okay.
Right. Because we were looking at 30, 50 feet, and so the quit came up that it's consistent with the state law.
Basically, car truck length.
So what we're saying here is we're opening a public hearing?
It would be, the proposal would be to schedule public hearings on this for October 11th.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So you all good with that? So I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for Layton Avenue parking on October 10th, 11th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to open a public hearing on Hildreth Street parking on October 11th.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4 we did, so we're good.
Item 4 we're done. So we have comments from board members. Trustee Skrimsky.
I'm good.
Trustee Allen.
I'm good, next time.
Okay, Trustee McGann.
I'm good too.
Trustee Hattrick.
Well, against your better judgment, I guess. There's hardly anybody here, but does Charlie want to show this little diagram to the people? And just get a little, are you allowed to laugh at this?
I don't know. We'll find out.
See if you can magnify that, Charlie. But anyhow, somebody sent this to my wife, and I did think it was hilarious, and it's a thing against that, the bad effects of deforestation or cutting down too many trees is you end up with dogs sitting in line. And the thing that amazed me about this is how the heck did they get 16 dogs to sit like that and the 17th one to do what it's doing? I mean, I'm just saying, go get them, champ. But anyhow, thank you. That's it.
Just came from the Lucy's Pet Parade.
Had seen that, and I thought it was pretty dramatic, too.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah. I don't have much comments, but, you know, South Carolina's got a terrible storm that is in North Carolina, too, and I guess parts of Georgia is got
Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
It's very warm.
The storm is spread out. Does everybody know that if the eye collapsed and it went
Yeah.
like that?
And I just thank God that we aren't in the same situation, and my condolences go out to all of them and all the people that moved off the coast, and you know, they're talking 3 feet of rain. That's quite a bit of rain.
That's a lot of water.
You know, so
That's a lot of rain in hilly country.
It's a lot of people don't realize the wind is not, it's the flooding, it's the water, the surge.
Yep, it's the water and the surge, and you know, what always brings me to mind is I send out a sincere thank you to all our first responders, the police department, EMT, fire department, and now our new ocean rescue group, which I will say that in the ocean rescue, they made a rescue over in North Sea.
Oh, they did?
Yep. There was the 2 brothers, I can't remember their names, but they were driving by, and then there was a boat flipped over off a woolly pond, and they stopped and grabbed a little surfboard and swam out there and rescued the people that were on the boat. So, you know, just that one is well worth all the time that we took putting them together, I think. And I thank them for their diligence and all being volunteers. I think is really a great thing. And I can't stress enough about our first responders and our fire department and our police department, because in situations like that, we really depend on all of you, and thank you for your services.
If I could just add one thing to that, actually, Mayor, and thank you for recognizing that, for the work they do, and maybe what they will, you know, but also what helps too is if the public will cooperate and perhaps give less work to our first responders, because while we're not, you know, this storm is certainly not going to impact us directly, but we certainly are going to get, you know, currents and rips and water, which already we're seeing. And I implore the public to be mindful of that. And I drove up there today and I saw some women with their young, very, very young children running around in the water as it came up. And as we all know, it only just takes that one wiping out of the child, and the parent goes in after, and, well, unfortunately, no statistics after that. So I just implore the public, I beg the public, ask them please to be mindful and don't stay out of the damn water, or near it when it's crashing or whatever. Take your photos from the road so we don't have to send our first responders in to dangerous situations.
And for visitors, we're putting up signs, are we not?
Yes, yep. There's been signs for
Yeah, the
warning
signs are
on rip currents and swimming.
Please heed to those.
Because I think the impact of the storm will be well through the weekend.
Okay.
We'll be getting pretty heavy seas. And, you know, there was a couple of reports offshore. You know, we have a series through NOAA of buoy systems offshore that measure wave heights and distance between the waves. And there was some astronomical size waves that they reported out there at those buoys. You know, I mean, I don't think they'd ever hit the coast because they would break and collapse before they got here. But, you know, when I saw the numbers, I went, you got to be kidding. You know, sure glad I'm not out there and sitting here.
Would have loved that in the old surfing days.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd attempt to surf that one. And then we have Summerfest coming up, right? Southampton Fest. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking summer.
Yes, Southampton Fest.
And that's
12th to the 14th.
12th through the 14th. Great thing to go to. Got a lot of events. We get food trucks.
Food trucks, chowder contest.
We got the chowder contest. Yep.
And do we have a band on Friday night?
Several bands.
Friday night,
Well, Friday
the
night's
Rotary
the
Club, the
Rotary.
Mean Machine Band,
Okay.
and food trucks as well, and also musical stylings of both hosts to join in with.
Right.
the Mean
Well, of
Machine
course.
Band. And a DJ. They've added a DJ as well.
So it's going to be an exciting weekend. So it's all good stuff. It really brings activity to the village at a downtime, and hopefully all the retailers will appreciate that. Now, I know from the retail, when the U.S. Open was here, restaurants, and it seems their numbers have been very strong in that June and beginning of July. And then they fell off as they went into July and August. But that opening time, when it's very difficult for most businesses in the village of Southampton, they all seem pretty happy.
We'll bring it back in October.
And you'll bring it back in
We'll
October.
try.
Yeah. No doubt about it. So we get to our second public comment. Is there anybody with any comment? Charlie?
Oh, I do.
Thank you.
You're right up there with Evelyn Conrad tonight.
Sorry, it's like, I don't normally get up here. But anyway, this should be a very easy one.
Go ahead, Counsel.
I'm sorry, I didn't give you enough.
Oh, got the attorney.
Sorry about that.
There you go. I've read it.
As you see, this is New York State Regulations 895.4. And their minimum standards for public education on governmental access. And if you look on the second page, number 2, it says the educational and governmental access channel shall be operated and administered by a committee or a commission appointed by local government and shall include appropriate representation of local school districts within the service area of the cable television system and may include for purposes of coordination an employee or representative of the cable television franchisee. Now, in 2002, I believe, the town of Southampton, through a resolution, created their version of the Educational and Governmental Access Channel Committee. Evidently, right now, the committee, there are, I believe 6 names on a committee, but I'm not sure. I think one of them actually has passed away, so I don't know if that's a committee that's, well, anyway. They seem to be not having people attending the meetings. And the reason I bring this up is because if you look at the bottom of page 3, it says, under footnotes, where an educational or a governmental channel is shared by more than one school district or local government or combination thereof, administration of such channels on a cooperative basis is encouraged. Now, I have had, over the last 15 or so years, conversations with the Public Service Commission going back to John Figliosi, who used to be in charge. There's a lady that's in charge now. And she fully agrees with me that under these provisions, the Village of Southampton is entitled equally to the channel as the Town of Southampton. It's called a shared channel. The Town of Southampton is currently operating and administering the channel, and the village contributes what I would consider its fair share of $19,000 a year to the operation of that channel. But the Village of Southampton has no representation on that committee. And what I'm suggesting is that maybe to help fill out that committee, the Village of Southampton should probably get in touch with the Town of Southampton and let them know that they would like to exercise their rights to actually have a hand in appointing at least one person that would be representing the village, preferably a citizen of the village that would be interested in doing so. And by that, at least you would have one person representing the village and the point of view of the village. It's important because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and I don't want to get into the franchise agreement whatsoever, but it still exists that the channel right now has this letterboxing effect. And what I'm suggesting is that the EG committee should be the force behind lobbying to get changes made on the federal level that would require the cable companies to give the municipalities a full 16:9 high-definition channel, at least one. And again, I don't want to get into this thing with the franchise agreement because that really has nothing to do with this. So I think the committee would be important to be able to go ahead and speak, because we are not the only municipality on Long Island that's having this problem and has actually complained to the Public Service Commission, and I reaffirmed that this morning with the Public Service Commission. There are other municipalities. So if the EG Channel Committee could get together and work on this issue and get in contact with the other municipalities, it's possible that federal regulations could be changed, that we don't have to deal with having a channel the way it should. Now, I hope, did I interfere with anything to do with the, okay, I just want to make sure I didn't step on the franchise agreement issue. There's nobody here to speak otherwise, okay?
No, but I would just ask you, Charlie, if you could assist us, I would be interested in a copy of that resolution that created the committee in the first place.
I have copies of that.
And any list of people that are currently on it, and so we know that where the vacancy exists, so that if we do go to the town, we can express that properly, that's all.
Yeah. There are 6 names on the committee right now.
And it's a 7-person committee?
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard.
How many people are on the committee?
Well, 6 right now, 6 names. I'm not sure they're all alive right now, but
is there supposed to be 7 or 9?
I think you covered all the municipalities that are filmed that have meetings.
If you go back to the original resolution by the Town of Southampton back in 2002, it names a number of people that really should be appointed to that committee. It lists school districts, Southampton, Hampton Bays. It specifically mentions Our Lady of the Hamptons, Sister Kathy, and so on and so forth. So in other words, I'll bring it in and give you a copy for the board to look at. But it lists the whole array of people that represent a cross-section of not just the political entity of the community, but also the citizens of the community and representing the schools within the town of Southampton. So if anybody would like to go ahead and act on it, I think it probably would be a good thing to have representative for the village of Southampton. So I hope I didn't belabor it. And
no, that was great, Charlie. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Charlie.
Any further comments? Trustees? All right. Make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing legal matters.
Second? Aye. Second. All in favor?